In this session, I'm going to discuss with you in detail your work plan for this year. So by now you would know where your work plan comes from, okay? How the items were selected or the tasks were allocated specifically to you. You will also understand now that your work plan is your performance assessment. Okay? According to the contract, we will have to meet each other 3 times during the year to measure your performance, and the work plan kind of provides that guideline about what will we be measuring. So your work plan has a couple of key performance areas. These are the areas that you will be responsible for this year. So the first one is to manage the funding databases. So that would be Research Africa, Pivot, and InfoEd. And by now I hope you've had the opportunity to kind of play around on these databases and get a feel for it. Of course, I will be showing you in detail how to do the various activities. But your first responsibility is going to be to manage the funding databases. Your second responsibility will be to establish and manage a funding alert system. Now, this alert system is intended to inform researchers when calls are coming out so that they can apply for that and start completing the applications way in advance. So that would be another one of your responsibilities for this year. Thirdly, we need to provide support in developing individual call schedules for researchers or guides with specific call categories. So individual call schedules, let's say a researcher is interested in early career research. We need to compile all the funding opportunities available for that researcher in early career research. Or there might be components of his or her research that they require travel funding. So we'll include that in their individualized call schedule, or a component for equipment, etc. Then you need to establish and manage the research contracts database for external research grants. So by now you know every grant there is a contract, and the contracts will stipulate when reports are due and when invoices are due. And we need to kind of track that, keep a track on that, so that we can notify researchers when these reports are due. We also need to add a professional development component. Considering that this is an internship and your development is going to be very important here, we need to add what are the professional development areas that you would like to focus on. Preferably they should be related somehow to the work that you're doing here, or at least could benefit the work that you're doing here. So that we make sure that you're also paying attention to your own professional development. And finally, you will have a special project. So you're going to choose your own special project, and I want us to add that to your performance agreement as well. So let's look at each one of these individually. So manage funding databases. You are going to be responsible to register new users on these databases. By now you know that the databases are subscription based, so we register all UP students and academics who want to use the databases. It's not open to the public, and you're going to be responsible for that registration process. I want you also to track and report on specific users. Okay, so we want to know who are active on the databases and what are they looking at. Okay, and we want to see if we can't use that information a little bit more strategically. I want you also to follow up on expressions of interests. So when a researcher has indicated that they are interested in a specific funding opportunity on the database, I want you to follow up with them, kind of remind them when the submission is due, and if there's any way that we can help. Then I also would like you to prepare monthly reports on the general database usage. I want to know, for example, how many users have you registered for that particular month. How many times have people logged in, etc. There is a template for this, and we will discuss that in a little bit more detail. I also would like you to set up alerts on these databases. So we have an alert form where researchers complete the form and they indicate certain keywords and the type of research that they're looking for. I would like you to set up alerts on behalf of these researchers on the database so that every time a new funding opportunity is uploaded on the database, that the researcher gets a notification. We also need to include under specific calls on the databases, the faculty or institutional deadlines, and this you will get from the research funding bulletin. Okay. It will also be your responsibility to host and arrange training sessions for the databases on various campuses. So for this, I'll have to introduce you to the contact people at the databases at Pivot and Research Africa and InfoEd. And you will be responsible to arrange those sessions, the logistics around those sessions, market those sessions, and assist it to host those sessions. You will also be responsible to consult with individual researchers to familiarize them with the database features. Sometimes researchers are kind of intimidated by a database, but as soon as somebody just take the time and sit with them and show them how the database works, they can navigate their way around quite easily. Unfortunately, some researchers won't be able to attend your training session, so you will have to have these individual sessions as well. You will have to regularly interact and maintain a professional relationship with the database representatives. We work very closely with them, and it will be your responsibility to kind of get to know them and to maintain those relationships. And then finally, you will be required to prepare guidelines, podcasts, videos on specific database features. These will almost be like help guides that we can circulate among the academics. So that is the first key performance area, or your main activity, is to manage funding databases. The next one is to establish and manage funding alert system. So the first thing that you need to do is to, first of all, we don't really have a system yet. So I would like you to establish a system where we can capture funding opportunities that researchers intend to apply for in the future. Now, this system should consist out of the keywords form on SurveyMonkey, but also researchers who indicated for specific calls. So we'll discuss this and how that system might look in a little bit more detail. Secondly, you have to regularly update the system with expressions of interest, either from the funding databases or from SurveyMonkey. And I might also add to the system as I receive requests directly from researchers. Then it will be your responsibility to remind researchers in advance of the deadline date and really encourage them to apply for these opportunities. So if there's any way that we can help them by completing certain sections of the application forms, arranging institutional letters of support, you can let me know. That will not be expected of you to do that, but you can let me know, and I can complete those sections and help them to apply. Finally, every second week we send out the research funding bulletin. Now there might be funding opportunities in the bulletin that will match some of the alerts that you've set on the system of yours. So every week, every second week, I would like you to check in and on the funding bulletin, see whether there are any matches and send the researchers notifications of these funding opportunities that possibly could be matching their research. All right, the third one is to provide support in developing call schedules for researchers and guides on specific categories for calls. So first here, we're going to develop generic booklets on annual funding opportunities. Now, most of the funding opportunities that you will see come out every year around about the same time. I would like us to develop booklets on general requests. For example, most researchers request funding for conference attendance, or they request funding to host visiting professors, or request funding for equipment. So I would like us to develop individual little booklets on very generic funding opportunities. Okay. Secondly, I want us to assist individual researchers to develop calls for schedules specific to their research needs. Okay. So by now you know what is a call schedule. It is anticipated funding opportunities that will open in the next year. And I want us to assist researchers for their individualized call schedules. Okay. And these call schedules could be reactive, as in we can include funding opportunities that will have a call, as well as very proactive, as where we're identifying possible funders that will not necessarily have a call out. But we can discuss this also in a little bit more detail. Then, establish and manage your research contracts database. So here I want us to establish a system to capture relevant information on the signed contracts. So again, we need to know what are the invoice dates, what are the report dates, etc. When will the contract come to an end? Secondly, we need to assist researchers to obtain cost center numbers, and this is something that you will have to do in partnership with the faculties, but I'll explain to you that process in a lot more detail. Then you're going to need to assist researchers to obtain an invoice. Now this is not always applicable, not all grants, but again this is going to be in partnership with the faculty accountants, and there's a set form that you will have to complete and the researcher will have to sign. Fourthly, you're going to have to notify researchers when the reports are due well in advance so that they have time to prepare those reports, and ideally we should also notify them of the format of the reports. Fifthly, we have to notify researchers when invoices are due. Okay. This is very important because sometimes it can take a long time for money to clear within the university system, and if we have to wait a very long time for that, it can delay how the work is done. The researcher might have to postpone certain activities in the project because he doesn't have money. There's a cash flow issue. Lastly, you're going to have to update the collaboration space with the electronic versions of these contracts. Okay, so it's very important that we keep track of the contracts. And in fact, there's also a file box that I would like you to use to keep track of keep hard copies of these. Of course, I don't think I need to emphasize the importance of good attention to detail when it comes to the contracts. Okay, so we want minimum errors on these. So when we start working on that, really pay attention to dates and make sure that you understand the contracts. But we will discuss each one of these in person. Then I would like you to look at the professional development section yourself. I've sent to you the UPIT training guide. I've sent to you the UP priority courses that you can have a look at. And I'm sure by now you should have the NRF